So welcome. Good evening from Israel. Uh, actually, unfortunately, we always start events here by saying, in the event of an air raid siren, in the event of an air raid siren, I will leave and go to my bomb shelter, but Marzi will take over. And I'm super excited. I'm Jonathan Feldstein. You've been receiving emails and communications both from Marzi and myself. And, I didn't make any notes formally to do this introduction, but I realized just as I was turning on my computer tonight when Shabbat ended, how exciting this is. And for those of you, Luke, Sarah, Eric, and Natalie, who I believe will be joining us, to know, and Marzi, of course, everything that we created last year and we did last year that was so magnificent. So now, even though Marzi and I have been hard at work for the last few months putting everything in place for this fall, this sort of feels to me like it's the official kickoff. So that's what's making me excited because I'm hoping that all of you and many, many more people will be joining us this coming fall. Just by way of background, some of you I know, and we've had a chance to have a little bit more personal conversations, and for those of us with whom we haven't yet, I look forward to that in October. Um, wow, back in the late 80s, long story, but you're getting the punchline. God called me to be a bridge between Jews and Christians, and I didn't know what to do with that until I moved to Israel, which was in 2004. This summer will be 21 years ago. For a number of years, I worked for other organizations that were really happy for me to raise money from Christians for projects in Israel, but didn't really care about doing so in a way that was relational, or often with integrity. So after turning 50 and praying about what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I'm still wondering if, when I grow up, what I actually will be, I started in 2017 a U.S. nonprofit called the Genesis 123 Foundation, whose mission is to build bridges between Jews and Christians with Israel. And we do so in ways that are new, unique, and meaningful. And we do a lot of great things. And this is not a promotion for Genesis 123, but to give you background. And by way of background, just over 2 years ago, 2 years and 3 months, 4 months, a mutual friend introduced me to somebody who's now a very, very good friend, Marzi, who at least on my screen is in the upper left-hand corner, and said, "Wow, I'm getting to know this woman. She's a Christian. She was born in Iran. You have to get to know her. You have to interview her for your Inspiration from Zion podcast." So I thought, okay, that's novel. Iran still gave me for reasons that are obvious, especially these days, some negative feelings. But I thought, great, let's have a conversation. We need to do that. And Marzi and I became fast friends. Fast forward two or three more months, she came to Israel for the first time. We actually got to meet on the very first day of her first trip here. And a short time after that, she had this fabulous vision to bring Christians, people like you, to come to Israel to harvest olives. And I thought it was a good idea, and I've said it in her presence before. I didn't realize until we started doing it how incredible it truly was. And that's what we're here today to begin to talk about and include you, I hope, and many others this year. I don't have enough good things to say about Marzi. As I said, she's become a really dear friend. Now we're partners. I've read both of her books twice, and we had the privilege of being together in Maryland at the National Day of Prayer, where I got to hear her speak, which I've done many, many times before. But it just always leaves me coming away inspired, but also grateful. Grateful that we're connected, grateful that we're partners, and grateful that she had this vision and entrusted me to be her partner with this. So it's an amazing program, and you're going to hear more about that today. It's a partnership between friends and a partnership between my nonprofit, Genesis 123, and her nonprofit, New Persia. And I could go on all night and just make this a conversation about how much I admire Marzi, but I'm not going to do that. I just want to introduce her as my friend and my partner and say how grateful I am for this partnership, and let Marzi introduce herself and talk a little bit about her vision for this before we get into the substance of the program.
Thank you so much, Jonathan, for your kind and thoughtful introduction. You know that how much I'm blessed to get to know you and working with you. It's a great honor. And also, I wanted to say that it's a great pleasure to meet every one of you that decided to join us. And also those people that already in 2024 joined us, Luke, Sarah, Eric, and very glad to see you again here. As Jonathan mentioned, our friendship started in back 2022 through a podcast interview. And for those of you who do not know me, I'm sure you checked the website, you read some information about me. I don't want to take time to share my story. Information is on the website rootandbranchisrael.com that you can read, but I wanted to share more about this vision and idea that I strongly believe this is from God that we started together. And it's a joint project between Genesis 123 Foundation and my new foundation that I started last year, newpersia.org. And it started, as I said, in my first trip, 2023, when I visited Israel. And it's very interesting that to me that in my entire life walking with Jesus from the beginning of my faith, it was always God telling me, showing me through my dreams and visions to tell me where to go, what to do. And if you read my second book, A Love Journey with God, I shared lots of visions and dreams there. That one example is when I was in Iran, that God gave me that vision to distribute Bible, 20,000 Bible. And even though it was very dangerous, we started and we were very successful. And again, for Israel, as someone that was born in Iran, I always love to visit the Holy Land, which is the land of my Savior, my Lord Jesus Christ. And we as Christians, all of us, has a connection with this land. And it's not just the land, because, you know, our Savior Jesus was a Jew, apostles were Jew. And Old Testament is the foundation of our faith as Christians. So we are all have the same feeling as Christians, very connected, not only to the land, but to chosen people of God, Jewish people. So for me, that was a strong desire to visit the Holy Land. And finally, in Iran, definitely I could not travel, but I was praying. And finally, I traveled to America in 2016. I became American citizen, and I could get my ticket and go to Israel. But still, since that was a big desire and my dream to visit the Holy Land, I wanted God to give me the signal and tell me when exactly I should visit the Holy Land. And it took a few years, and it was the last few months of 2022 that God again gave me a dream. And that was the first time I had a dream about Jewish people in my entire life. And that, in that details, if we have time later, I can share more details. But God showed me about October 7th and what is going to happen. After I got that dream, I didn't know anything about October 7th. He just showed me a big community of Jewish people were sitting laughing. And suddenly I saw Jesus from his back that passed through this community. And then he opened my eyes, showed another terrorist group back, that were in clothes, black from the head to toes. And they showed me that how they are going to massacre these innocent people. And I was shouting and crying and asking God, please, don't let this happen. But I forgot that. And then a few other things happened, that I got connected with Jonathan through a mutual friend, and other things that I felt it's time for me to travel to Israel. And finally, I traveled. I met Jonathan, amazing a friend, partner that we are partnered in making Root and Branch project together. I'm so blessed. He was very hospitable, that in my first trip invited me to their home. I met his beautiful family and children. It was my first experience having Shabbat in Israel. And that was amazing. And Jonathan, was very hospitable, showing me different parts of, places in Israel. So that friendship started, but still I was visiting some part of Israel, and still there are many great places that I didn't have any chance to visit. But one of those places I wanted to mention, maybe I didn't mention before, that it was Garden of Gethsemane. When I went there, I spent a long time there, and I got attracted with the beauty of olive trees there. 100 years old of olive trees, and it's all over Israel, not there, but I sat there for a long time, and I was thinking, and we all know as Christians, and it was there that before Jesus being crucified, and that he felt that pressure and pain, and God allowed him, and he felt that what that means, being pressed, being crushed, like, the way that we make olive oil, that they are pressed on the olives and to make oil out of that. But Jesus was supposed to be pressed, to be crushed. And the product of that press and crush was his blood, that we as Christians got saved through his blood. And through that blood, he wanted to give us life. He wanted to show his unconditional love to us. So that meaning was, what Jesus did for us was so amazing to me. It's, in First John, chapter, 4 verse 9-10, that God tells us that he sent Jesus to save us, and he tells that's the way that God showed his amazing love to us. So that was so amazing, and the beauty of those olive oil. And I wanted to do something, but I didn't know October 7th is going to happen. 9 months after my dream, October 7th happened. And in my second trip, I went to Israel, and Jonathan kindly showed me those communities and that were devastated by Hamas terrorists. And I sat with the family members of the hostages. And it was in that train, my first trip also, I witnessed the suffering and pains of my Jewish brothers and sisters. It was in the first trip that Jonathan's neighbor, a wife and two of her daughter were killed by terrorists. Another time we were driving, and another Jew was stabbed right in front of us. And I strongly believe God took me at the right time to Israel, connected me with the right person, even though some Christians tells me, why you decided to join and work with a Jew? And I say, why not? That's exactly God's purpose, to put us together, me as someone who was born in Iran, and from childhood they brainwash Iranian people with hate toward Israel. And Jonathan as a Jewish person, I think that makes this story and this project more powerful and more beautiful, that what I wanted to show to the world, this is the future of Iran and Israel as well. That's the fifth pillar of my nonprofit, that it's not just building bridge between Jews and Christians, but also to restore the friendship between Jews and Persians. And when you read Bible, you see that Persian and Jews always had kind of connection with each other. So for me, personally, as someone who was born in Iran, that's very important. And I think through this project that we put together with the help of Jonathan, America, it's hard, and praise God for him that in Israel, when I shared my vision with him, he immediately accepted to work on that. And we put everything, every details, designing logo, website, a lot of work. You may not see that. We put together to prepare this project, and we asked Christians to join us. And I wanted to say that the foundation of Root and Branch, even though we say that, yeah, this is the way that we wanted to show our love to Jewish people. And as Christians, yes, if we wanted to show our unconditional love to our brothers and sisters the way that Jesus did, this is the time. And I remember last year, a few people hesitate and had some fear because of the war. And I talked to them and I said, this is exactly the time that we need to be in Israel. Love is not just by saying lots of beautiful words, but at the time of pain and sufferings and trauma, we are just, we say, no, not, this is not the time. And we can visit Israel at the time of peace, for example. But I always say, if we wanted to be a great example as our Savior Jesus Christ, this is the time that Jewish people are suffering their economy, their life, and they are living in trauma. And this is the time as Christians, we need to be there and we can show in action our love to our Jewish brothers and sisters. So, and by harvesting olives, we are producing oil. And I strongly believe this oil can be different because it's come through the work of Jews and Christians together, putting our hands together in the land and producing something like Jesus Christ gave us his blood to show our unconditional love. But through this producing this olive, we can say that we stood with our brothers and sisters at the hard time, at the time of trauma, and we produced that to give our unconditional, love to our brothers and sisters. So I talk a lot. I just need to stop, but I just wanted to say that I strongly believe this is God's will to be there. And I believe if it's not, God is going to close it totally. If any of you have fear of getting killed or die, I always say, that's my belief that it doesn't matter if I am in Israel or in Hawaii. If it's my time to die, I will die and something bad will happen. But if not, it's God's will. I encourage every one of you to join us and enjoy this project. And we have a few people that they can share their amazing experiences as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Marzi. You know, for those of you who have never met Marzi before, now you just have a little bit of of an understanding why I'm always so inspired. What I'm going to do now is just go through some of the technical things that are coming up. There were some great questions. I didn't write down who sent the questions in advance, but thank you for those. I'll try to address them, but we're going to also leave opportunities for you to ask more questions that surely will arise. And of course, we want to invite Sarah and Eric and Luke to also who were with us this past year just to share their personal experience. But Marzi, you said the word a few times, love, and that was also from when we were down that on your second trip here when we had lunch with that man from one of the communities. I still get very emotional by all of that, but you asked him, what can we do? And he said to you, love.
Yes.
So that's what we're doing, and it's amazing. So the vision, root and branch. And by the way, it's funny, and I don't take credit for the vision, but I do take credit for the name, which I always impress myself because I'm the Orthodox Jew in the room. But the fact that we take the name from Romans 11, but it's so symbolic and so relevant and so important. The idea is to bring people and have a connection, but the idea is to harvest olives. And olives are one of the two or three biblical fruits. In fact, today I was reading a book that's a narrative of Moses's life. And every time I read about the oil and the oil lamps, I was thinking, wow, that's of course olive oil. And every reference to oil in the Bible is always referencing olive oil. So we're doing something that's biblical, that in and of itself is an experience that none of us had and is unparalleled anyway. But we're using, as Marzi said, we make the oil. And now, none of us were experts on harvesting olives a year ago, none of us are experts yet in making anointing oil, but that's going to be the plan this year, is that we're going to make anointing oil, sell the oil, and use the proceeds to be a blessing to those communities in and along the Gaza border. And it was really only after the war began here that everything started to click into place. And Marzi mentioned, you see, like the picture I have behind me, you see in Israel olive trees everywhere. It's landscaping. They're up there outside of my house. There are two little traffic circles each that have three olive trees. In major cities, there are major roads that have hundreds of olive trees lined up alongside them. And in public parks and in national parks, there are olive trees. And this is where everything started to come into place. We would harvest olives specifically in the Gaza border area, in the communities that were most devastated by the war. We would harvest public trees that largely had never been picked before. The fruit falls down and that they're beautiful, but no one did anything. And we got a number of communities to buy into that, and including the National Parks Authority, where we were very privileged. I mean, what great staff, right? Everyone who was with us, the amazing, amazing people at the National Parks Authority who just gave us free rein to go to the Tel Ashkelon National Park. We harvested olives in Sderot, which is in the largest city that's right on the Gaza border, and one of the other smaller communities that was devastated by the war. But the point is to be a blessing. And we've both spoken about it, me kind of joking at the outset, and Marzi a little bit even more morbid than I am today in terms of talking about bombs and terrorism. These are realities, but the truth is, and we can address it. I don't think anyone ever felt unsafe. I think it was kind of with a sense of irony. There were a couple of days that we were harvesting olives and we heard outgoing artillery fire during the rain, and we weren't sure if it was artillery or if it was thunder. But I mentioned this specifically because it's come up, but it also came up in many of your questions about how close we will be to the border. We're going to be very close along the Gaza border, and from certain places, we'll certainly hear anything that's going on. If it's still going on, we don't know what's going to be in October. We will be in places where we can look into Gaza, as we did from a few vantage points, and come pretty close to the fence. But that's the point. And eventually, I had a meeting this past week with the head of the National Parks Authority, who's enamored with what we're doing, and he's prepared to open up any national park in Israel that we want to go harvest olives. So I shared with him that our vision is eventually we'll have multiple trips, multiple tracks, multiple buses crisscrossing Israel, harvesting olives, and come together for certain activities. But we'll be in the Galilee, and we'll be in the Golan Heights, and we'll be in major cities, and we'll be in the public parks, and we'll be along the Gaza border. But the idea is simple. We're going to spend, I think, out of 10 days, all of the details that I'm not going into it on a day-to-day basis, because all of them are either on our website, or when you click through to our travel partner, Amiel Tours, you see the day-to-day itinerary there. But the basic idea is that in 10 days, we're going to harvest olives. I think it's 7 of the 10 days. 2 of the 10 days are touring, travel, getting to visit. We did Jerusalem this past year. Presumably we'll do that again, but we'll wait and see what makes the most sense. But in and along the Gaza border, we also are seeing sites that are relevant to what took place there. So we harvest. It's not a full day. I don't think we left any day obscenely early. There wasn't a need to do that. And again, since none of us were experts, we didn't know how physically enduring or strenuous harvesting olives would be. We also didn't know how fun it would be, and we also didn't know that the sound of the olives falling onto the tarps that we bought in order to scoop them up would still be a sound that's kind of etched into our hearing memory with great affection. So we're going to be doing that, but pretty much every day there's also another activity, and those activities meant to be able to show you the area in which we're harvesting, show some of the devastation, to engage and interact in a meaningful way with Israelis, basically immersive. One night our dinner was a barbecue with an elite military unit that had just come out of Gaza. So it was our privilege to be able to sponsor a beautiful barbecue for them, but it was also our dinner, but it was also an evening of, I don't know how many hours, but a fellowship, and nobody wanted to leave. And that was beautiful. We choose, and everyone got to see where we make the olive oil. Not a coincidence. We chose to be at the olive press in central Israel, owned by a Christian Israeli Arab, because we're building bridges between Jews and Christians. And he loved that we had all these volunteers. And the things that I'm saying are to give you a flavor of what we did, but similar. And someone asked the question, will anything be different this year? Indeed, certain things will be different, but we're going along with the same idea. One day, we ended up volunteering in the morning to make sandwiches and then deliver the sandwiches just as close to the Gaza border as you could get, to soldiers who were going in and out of Gaza. And that was such a treat and a blessing, I think, for everybody. The second day, when we were at the Tel Ashkelon National Park, because we wanted to give people an understanding of what this magnificent park is and where we for sure will be again this coming year, we had this elderly volunteer, a historian, to give us a briefing about why we were in this place that had antiquities, the most modern of which were 2,000-year-old Roman antiquities, but the most ancient of which was a 3,500-year-old Canaanite gate, which we got to have a tour through and walking around in a great group picture in front of. I like to say we were an olive's throw away from this Canaanite gate, and we were. And that was so remarkable. But also, I pray that by the time everyone's back this October, that we'll get to see God again. GAD is his name, not God. But it wasn't intended, but it was a divine appointment all the same. God has two grandsons who we're all still praying for, who were two of the expected living 20 or 21 hostages who are still in Gaza. And that was one of the most I think powerful experiences and beautiful moments, how people were just praying for him. But it was all with a tremendous connection. And I know that and I guess the last thing, which of course we'll do together, is to have Shabbat dinner in a traditional Orthodox environment that we will do. So it's all meant to be immersive, and we provide all of the equipment and we take care of all of the logistics. Last year we were a much more intimate group, and one of the sad things is that we might not ever be able to completely replicate that intimacy. But this year we have a great travel partner. Part of the Marzi and I spent many, many weeks interviewing, debating, discussing, grilling to make sure that we would have not just people who could carry out the job of making sure everything was done properly, but at the best price, making it easiest for you to join. We're not in the tourism business. This is not meant to be a money maker per se. We want as many people to be able to join as possible. There were some questions I want to get through now as part of the overview of what to expect, and then we can and then I'd love to hear from those who were with us last year, and then open up to any other questions. Someone asked again how close we will be to the border. We'll be close. I said that. What advice? For example, what's the weather going to be like? Actually, in October, it could still be very warm. We're on the cusp of the rainy season, so it could be chilly and rainy. But it could be a little bit of both. We'll look into that, and we tell people to make sure that there's enough clothing to stay warm in when we're outside, maybe getting rained on, which wasn't a bad thing. But I think more likely than not, it'll be warm and sunny. What happens if there's an emergency situation on or near the trip dates? So that's a great question. It's very important. It's one of the reasons Marzi and I chose to work with Amiel as the tour operator. There are specific deadlines as to when you need to pay a deposit, and the balance and everything has to be paid in advance. But also I think it's on their website when you click through are the cancellation dates. And theirs was by far the most generous, allowing you, if something comes up a month in advance, to be able to cancel, I think, with no penalty. And then there incremental penalties, and all of them are legitimate and very, very reasonable, and much more so than the others that we would work with. But it's important. It's very important. Let me not forget to say this now. You do want travel insurance. We, Marzi and I, strongly encourage to ticket through Fellowship, which is the name of the agency that will do airline booking for us for two reasons. Even though I choose to typically fly United and United Partners because it's my status, and I know if I get stuck somewhere, I know how to get around it. It's not a stress that anyone wants to deal with at the last minute. If there's a problem, and that's when there will be a problem. So you want to work with somebody who's reliable, who can help you, who can make sure that if there's a problem. But El Al also is going to be one of the most reliable flight, and we've discussed that. So we're not requiring anyone to book on any particular flights, but we're encouraging it strongly with El Al. And you can begin to have those conversations now. Someone else asked about that. Have the conversations, knowing the day we want to arrive, knowing that we're going to start that morning, that there will be group transportation that's included from the airport to the hotel where we're staying. In addition to the question about what advice to give and what's the weather, what do you need to bring? You just need to bring, Marzi or anyone else can add if I'm missing something. You need to bring clothes that are suitable, comfortable clothes, comfortable shoes, things you don't mind getting a little bit dirty, sunscreen, for sure. These are basic things, and anything that you would normally, any toiletries. I don't think that there's anything special that you need to bring, although we might say, and Sarah and Luke, and I think some others did this, they brought some things for soldiers, power bars. I don't remember what types of things, but we may choose to do that as well. What's covered by the cost? All of the details are listed on the Amiel page. I would say essentially all meals are covered. We're providing what's called full board, 3 meals on most days, except the touring days, including lunch where we are. The touring days, meals will be on your own. We provide swag, t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, things of the sort. What else is covered? We do not include insurance. That needs to be on your own. Um, the basic land package is based on double occupancy, which means sharing a room with somebody. If you're coming as a couple or siblings, or someone asked a question about bringing a grandson, that's a great idea. So if you want to share a room with your 20-year-old grandson, fabulous. If you prefer that each of you have your own rooms, there's a surcharge for what's called a single supplement. But all of that's based on that, and you can register individually and then figure out if you don't have somebody, rooming assignments, or you'll get assigned then to a single room with that extra additional surcharge. So a few people asked to see the daily itinerary, and again, and a few people have also mentioned that they want to bring friends and relatives. Obviously, you'll share the link to this video that we'll send out to you. But I want to, maybe with that, I'll just encourage you also to go to rootandbranchisrael.com, and then there's a place that you can, it has all of the travel details in there. But yes, absolutely bring friends and relatives. Somebody asked about bringing younger people, and since younger is relative, I don't know exactly what that means if that person is here and wants to ask more. But we had goodness, we had, well, on our last trip, we had people from 5 years old up to perhaps 65 or 70. Yeah, I think, somewhere in that range. I don't think for anybody at any point it was physically taxing, more than anything. And it's not like it's, the book I was reading about Moses today is preceding the Jewish people becoming slaves in Egypt. Nobody's a slave. If anyone needs to sit and break and take a break and rest, then by all means, and everyone will work at their pace and do the things that they're capable and comfortable for doing. So, but it's physical work to hold a rake up and knock olives down from trees. And oh, I have to say this, Marzi and I talked about it. I don't know if I shared it even with Eric and Sarah and Luke, but one of the interesting things is if you go to an olive orchard where they cultivate trees, the trees are low, so you can reach the top. Anyone who was with us last year knows that there were those trees you could see the top of, but we couldn't reach. And that's also so interesting because I only realized this maybe a month or so ago. That emphasizes the verse in Romans 11 that we're talking about wild olive trees. We're actually harvesting wild olive trees that are not cultivated and meant for harvesting. So that's just an extra really cool dimension. But bring people young, old. We are talking about, I do want to mention it, but there's nothing detailed about it yet, that we are talking with Luke and Sarah about possibly doing a family trip that would be more family friendly. Although I have to say, I think we all agreed that having the Stewarts from Alaska was one of the things that absolutely made our trip with your whole family and all of your incredible kids. That was amazing. But we're going to look into that. So again, the question is, does it work for younger people? Yes, absolutely, by all means. And again, will anything be different this year? Which I assume that was asked by somebody who was with us last year. So it will be different in the sense that the daily schedule might vary, and we might not all do this. We might not do exactly the same things that we did, but the general idea will be. I know it's hard to say when this war will be over and when all the hostages are returned, but we're still living. And I think I'll just say this and wrap it up, and then move on to maybe hear from the others, or Marzi, if you want to add anything, if I missed anything. We're still living in the wake of this war, and it's hard to know what will be happening in October. And I'm sure someone following now might have fears and worries, and I concur with Marzi that when it's our time, it's our time. That may or may not be a comfort, but it's a reality. And so we're planning to have at least as many. I think we'll probably have many more people who will join us this coming year. Um, Joining in the prayer that there won't be that no one will be worried about any physical threats, that the airlines will be flying again, the prices will come down with the flights, because right now there's a bit of a monopoly. But we don't know. And that kind of goes back to what Marzi said at the outset. We're doing something that no one's ever done. We're expressing love, we're expressing comfort, we're expressing solidarity with the I was going to say Jewish people, but it's not only Elias who owns the olive press. This man who's become a dear friend, although he can't speak English, who was our bus driver. Um, he is a Bedouin Arab who was our bus driver, but we hired him specifically because on October 7th of 23, he raced back to the site of the Nova Music Festival to save the lives of 30 Israelis who he had dropped off there. It's the Israeli people who need love and comfort and support. And I think that's an important extra dimension. Marzi, did I leave anything out before we open it up to others?
No, thank you so much for explaining. I'd like to give more time to people if have extra questions, um, others who experience that to share a little bit.
Um, Luke, Sarah, it's early morning in Alaska. What would you want to share for a few minutes what your experience was? And then Eric?
Okay. I did want to. We're the couple that brought our six kids with us. Our oldest was 16 at the time, and our youngest was six. And I wanted to include some of the things that they said just really briefly when I asked them, what did God give you through this opportunity to go to Root and Branch? And they weren't all up or all here. So, but the ones that were said something I thought was really profound. Shoshana said that meeting Marzi and just interacting with her made Christian persecution very real to her. It put a face on that. And she said she knew about it and everything before, but that made it personal and real and something that helped her firm up her commitment should she be in such a place like that. So that
Wow.
was really beautiful.
That's
And then
great honor.
Koya said right after that, she said, working in the kibbutz and talking with people who dealt with the terrorists destroying their homes showed me how much the Jewish people need support and how much they're going through. And I thought it was really beautiful. Those are the only two who were here and up this morning early enough to get their feedback, but that basically they said that that the aspect of understanding Christian persecution and understanding Jewish persecution was what the biggest gift that God gave to them through Root and Branch. And then I would just, because that's the whole goal of Root and Branch, right? So for a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old to be able to walk away with that is really, really beautiful. And then I just add with that that the physicality, not saying it was, incredibly hard work or whatever, but just that my muscles and my hands were able to get dirty, touching and working in the history of God's plan, that in a very, very tiny, tiny sense, that I've made a tiny, tiny mark on the land which his eyes are always turned to, and hopefully been a blessing to him, a way that I could worship him. That was really, really special to me and a gift that God gave me through this. So much more I could say, but those were my three takeaways.
Thank
Great.
you for sharing.
Yeah, and as far as the dealing with the issue of the safety of my family, just I wanted to just touch on that a little bit, because as a dad, it is something that I wrestle with, and I don't want to force my kids to do anything scary, but I do want to allow them to feel a challenge and be able to make the choice to do something difficult. And so I didn't push them, and all the kids made the choice that they wanted to go, and the but as far as the safety issue, one of the things that I thought was, if I don't go because of the war, I'm leaving out a lot of the Bible, you know?
Wow.
And what I mean by that is that there's a lot in the Psalms and other places where people depended on God and trusted him for safety.
Mhm.
And in order to live out my Christian life, I had to be faithful, to that part of scripture. And I just want to also say that for my family, where we stayed, we arrived several days ahead of time, just 3 days or so. But in the places we stayed in Ashkelon and where we stayed at Perak Tikva, and then where we when we went to Sderot and the other communities in the Gaza envelope, there were no sirens, during that
Right.
time. So for my
Right.
family, the kids, they they didn't ever feel that they didn't experience that. And so I think I just want to ease them into something difficult, and I think God helped me with that. And then so anyways, I and then and then also God provided for the trip also, and the funds to be able to go. It was expensive for my whole family to go, but God provided the money to go too. So in all that I could see that he was with us. And
Yeah.
I just
Did Eric freeze only? I mean, Luke. Okay. They
Yeah.
froze. I do want to just take off on one point that Luke was making, regarding security. Is that actually where we're going to? Oh, there you are, Luke. Did you want to finish? We
it's
lost
okay.
you
I
for a
think I
minute.
used my time.
Okay. Thank
I'll
you.
just add really, really fast that Levi, our youngest, says about at least once a week, "Are we going to Israel tomorrow?" And he's always
Wow.
asking. He always wants to go. So,
Tell him Tag he's it now.
You have
yeah.
adorable kids.
They're great kids and really truly made the experience one as special as it was. But to emphasize something that Luke was saying, about not hearing any sirens, it's actually where we are going to be is one of the safest places. Even when the Houthis are sending missiles from Yemen, it's not going near there. The air raid siren isn't, anywhere near there. And fortunately, Hamas has been at the moment sufficiently disabled. They don't have a whole lot. Eric, would you like to share for a couple of minutes about your experience?
Sure. So one thing, Jonathan, as you were kind of sharing your story about how you were kind of drawn to build those bridges, but weren't really quite sure at that time what to do with it. I can kind of similarly relate that about 4 years ago when I got to travel to Israel for the first time, spring of 2023. Um, it was an incredible experience as expected. I got to see these places that I'd read about my whole life. And that was just as amazing, as expected. But what was kind of unexpected is just feeling like, that real personal connection with Israel. Um, as I left, something that I did not expect is it kind of felt like I was, leaving home or leaving family behind. And so that's kind of when for me, it was like, okay, um, Lord, as you kind of reveal to me your love for Israel and for the Jewish people, um, and now put this on my heart, what do I do with this? um, but then just fast forwarding 6 months when on October 7th when the war broke out, especially, um, I still had no idea what God had in mind for me, but just as any friend or family in need, you know, when they when they need help and support, you want to go there and support them in any way you can. And so this was a great opportunity for me to do that. Um, and as you briefly mentioned, if there's one thing that really stood out to me, it was that opportunity to sit down with that unit of IDF soldiers, um, and just spend a few hours just getting to know them personally, one by one. That's really kind of the primary reason why I wanted to go there, is just to build relationships and to show
Yeah.
people, especially as I learn more and more, how it kind of feels like the most of the world has kind of turned their back on them to say no. You know what? That's sadly that is true, but not of all of us. And to get the opportunity to do that in person. Um, was absolutely priceless.
Thank you.
So yeah, it's no matter
Oops.
no matter what the cost. Again, it's a priceless experience just to see it in their faces and with their words that it means it means so much just to be there, especially in a time of war. So I would highly encourage anyone to take that experience and even though it's never really been a concern of mine, where I go, am I safe or not? But I would certainly say um, that in general, um, not based on my opinion, but even if you, I think, look at stats online, you're safer in Israel than you are in general here in the U.S. And so, yes, it is a country at war, but by no means, I don't think any of us really felt threatened or unsafe.
Thanks, Eric. Marzi, before we open it up, and you as always, I'm gonna make sure you get the final word before we finish. Is there anything before I want to open up to questions, and I want to invite people? They can raise their hand here or identify themselves or just put a question in the chat. But Marzi, is there something else that you wanted to add to any of this?
No, thank you for asking, and thank you everyone that shared their experiences with us. I would like other people to have time to ask their
Great.
questions.
Floor's open, folks. Live or in writing? Sure, Deborah, go ahead. You just have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi. When we come there, I believe it's a 10-day trip, right? And
Yes.
then does the cost include the airfare or do we come on our own?
No, the cost does not include airfare, and I meant to address that, and I forgot. Since people are coming from so many different places, the airfare can't be calculated from Alaska and from the UK and from New Mexico and from Colorado and Virginia at the same rate. So that's why what the idea will be, specifically if you do your booking with Fellowship, is that they will try to get everyone to the same hub to be on the same flight or one of a few flights that will come together, but the price does not include airfare.
Okay. And then the other question was when we are there, mostly it'll be like planting the olives and stuff. So do we get to see, like, we want to venture out on our own to see the Holy Land, like, places? Are we allowed to? How does that work? Like, if you want to go and see some places in
We
Israel.
encourage anyone to come early or stay late and have those opportunities. Surely, as I said before, no one's a slave. If people don't want to show up one morning and go do their own thing, that'll be up to you, and you'll need to make those arrangements. But we will have two full formal days of guided touring, so you will see a bit. I wish Cindy were here. Cindy's one of the people who participated. It was her first time in Israel. And Marzi and I spent a lot of time speaking with her about it, that it's very different from an introductory tour where you get on and off a bus all day. But I think I can fairly and accurately represent on her behalf that it was an experience that she wouldn't have given up for her first time. There were things she didn't see, but she'll be back and have other opportunities. We can talk about that more individually, more offline. But yeah.
And then we can bring as many people, is what you're saying, like,
Yeah,
as long as.
absolutely. Absolutely. Robert, please.
Yeah, yeah, I'll probably find it on the web page, but is there a particular date that we must finalize a decision by?
Uh, well, yes and no. The yes is that they have to be everything needs to be paid by a certain date, but if someone decides 2 weeks before to participate, as long as we have space and there are flights, we're not going to stop anyone from participating at the last minute.
Okay.
I would encourage people because of the potential iffiness of flights and also the relative cost. The longer you wait, the price of your flights is going to go up. We would love to see two full buses of people, but I think it's fair to say that if we reach the maximum number of people on a bus and then you decide you want to come, we're not going to get a second bus for you. I don't know that we can do that administratively. So the sooner the better, but there's not a deadline per se.
Okay. And if I come as a single person, you'll match me up with somebody for a room
We can do that.
if they're available.
Absolutely.
Okay. And I guess you've already answered this. Travel while we're working in Israel is provided with these buses, right? We don't have to take a taxi from where the
No.
hotel is to the work zone.
No, all travel, all transportation, Coming from group flights, I do want to identify that people who will be met as part of group flights will be picked up at the airport and returned to and brought to the hotel. And then the same thing with the return flights at the end. If anyone comes at a different time, we can't necessarily provide that. But other than that, every day of the harvesting of the in along touring along the Gaza border and the formal guided tours will be with a bus. And yeah, that's
Okay. All right.
we don't
Good.
have to provide any individual transportation.
Okay. And I'll ask this question, although I think you've addressed it, but upper limit on age. Like I'm going to be 76 this year, so, but I think I'm in good enough condition to come. And we were just in Israel in 2024 on our first tour, the first time
Yeah.
ever there, and we did pretty well with that. So I think I'm going to be fine, but I just want to make sure that you don't have a set limit.
No, no limit. We want and you look, I'm almost 20 years younger, but people will be tired and will rest
Yeah.
and will do what they can. And if someone's that was also one of the things, and I say it partly in jest, but to have the Stewarts bring their children, they were great at schlepping along those heavy crates of olives. If that's not something that you're going to do, but it's fine. It's all going to be
Okay.
at everyone's individual pace.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention last year, I remember one of our volunteers got sick and I insisted to him, please stay at the
Oh yeah,
apartment and rest. But he said, no, he had fever, but he said, no, I wanted to join you and, I don't want to miss that opportunity. So it's totally based on your decision. We never, push anyone to, do a work, like labor. It's just enjoying as, working together. It's a kind of building a family relationship, not
yeah.
only, connecting with Jewish people, with Israel, but a family relationship between ourselves to be connected, to be friends and enjoy that, not feeling that we were forced to do
Right.
something.
And there are many other, the olive harvest, of course, is central, but all of the other experiences that you'll be there for. And you're right. That was a really good point, Marzi. When Danny was sick, he didn't want to miss a moment of
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
I was concerned about him
I
and
was
he said,
too.
no, I'm
Yeah.
not going to miss that.
Yeah.
That was
There
very
was,
exciting.
Naomi wrote, it sounds wonderful, but she's going to be here in August. But we'll definitely pass along the word to friends. I'm trying to see the other comments. How do I scroll up? I saw, wow, I'm so sorry that I'm not able. Marcy, do you see the questions under the chat?
No.
Unfortunately, I'm not figuring out how to scroll. Oh, I know why. Hold on. That's why. Okay, now I can do it.
I don't
Um,
see. Do you
Peggy,
see?
you wrote, if you stay for a couple of extra days, will ground transportation? Yeah, well, ground transportation will be available to the hotel to the airport from the conclusion of the program. If, for instance, we're going to be, and you asked where we're going to be. We're going to be, I believe, in Ashkelon. I'm waiting to find out Ashdod, which is the city just to the north of Ashkelon, where they have a choice of some hotels. Um, so that's where we're going to be. And yes, the travel agent can provide additional support for accommodations and touring and anything else you want. Absolutely. But if, for instance, when the program ends, if you are taking a bus back for sure to the airport, from the airport, transportation blossoms out to the center, to Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. I won't say that since we own the bus for the day, I won't say that we can do a stop. For instance, if you wanted to go back to Jerusalem or Tel Aviv or somewhere else, afterward. But I don't want to promise that, but it probably seems reasonable.
So my last question is Golan accessible now? Can we get up that north?
You sure can. At the moment, it's it's accessible. There are more areas that are closed military zones that you can't get into than there were 2 years ago, but you can surely go up there now. Any other questions? Okay. Um, I reserve the right for all of you, whether you're watching this live or following this at some other point, to please be in touch with us. The email that Marzi and I both receive emails at is rootandbranchisrael@gmail.com, and you can connect with us through our website, rootandbranchisrael.com. Well, there'll be more questions. Definitely make your, I think the last thing I'll say, and then I'll let Marzi close. You should make a deposit, and as I mentioned at the outset, if you haven't done that, the deposits are fully refundable up until something like 30 or 45 days before. I would definitely encourage people to make a deposit. If you're inspired and want to join and not sure if you've got anyone to join you, now's a great time to start sharing this. I know some people it was very last minute last year, and some people wanted to bring friends and siblings and other people, and some of that worked out and some of it didn't, but we've got now a number of months. So I encourage you to do that, and we're always available. Marzi, you want to add anything or just wrap it up?
No, I just wanted to thank everyone for taking time to participate and their courage to step in and showing their willingness. And I hope to see all of you and meet all of you in Israel. And I also wanted to say that we all have the power of prayers. We can pray, and the Holy Spirit can always give us peace and show His will to us. And I hope you do pray for a peaceful time like last year that we enjoyed, and God confirmed that. We didn't mention that, but it was the first year that a big rainbow, which is symbol of God's promise to us, was appeared before we start harvesting.
Yeah.
And everyone was so excited. And when we wrapped the day, again, another rainbow came to the sky, and everyone saw that and agreed that that was kind of God's confirmation and make us very happy. And I pray for such a thing that this year be blessing to many people who are going to join us and to enjoy not only blessing Israel, to be blessing to us as well.
Great. Marzi, thank you for that. Everybody, thank you for joining us. We will see you soon. God
Thank
bless.
you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. God bless you all.